The courtroom erupted as the verdict was read. Guilty. The word hit Sergeant Marcus Holloway like a sniper's bullet, his combat stoic expression fracturing for just a second. Behind him, a reporter's camera flashed, capturing the moment the decorated veteran's face went slack, the purple heart pinned to his lapel gleaming under the harsh fluorescent lights as the bailiff snapped handcuffs around his wrists. Across the aisle, the real traitor sat smirking, his government-issued suit untouched, his hands clean. The jail transport van reeked of sweat and industrial cleaner, the metal bench digging into Marcus's thighs as it navigated DC's backstreets. Next to him, a kid no older than 19 eyed his uniform patches with a mix of awe and suspicion. They really lock up war heroes now, huh? The kid muttered. Marcus stared at the floor, the cuffs biting into his wrists. Not a hero, he said quietly. Just the fall guy. The van hit a pothole, jostling them all. Outside, the city blurred, past the VA hospital where he'd spent last Christmas volunteering, past the diner where the waitress still gave vets free coffee. None of it mattered now. A sudden screech of tires. The van lurched violently as another vehicle T-boned them. Marcus's head slammed against the metal partition, his vision swimming as shouts erupted outside. Gunfire. The kid next to him screamed as a bullet punched through the van's thin skin. Marcus reacted on instinct, shoving the kid to the floor and covering him with his own body as more shots rang out. The back doors flew open. Not cops. Not rescue. 3 armed men in tactical gear, their faces covered. The lead shooter raised his weapon, aiming directly at Marcus's forehead. Orders are orders, Sergeant. Marcus's breath froze. These weren't random attackers. They'd come for him, and they'd been sent by someone who knew exactly where the transport would be. The gun barrel pressed cold against Marcus's forehead, its circular imprint burning like a brand. Behind the shooter's balaclava, familiar eyes flickered. A fractional hesitation Marcus had seen 100 times in combat when a rookie froze before pulling the trigger. Stand down, Corporal. Marcus growled, low enough that only the shooter would hear. The man's grip on the weapon wavered. Marcus saw the exact moment recognition hit, the slight widening of pupils, the involuntary twitch in the trigger finger. A voice crackled through the shooter's earpiece. Status? The corporal's breath hitched. Marcus used the split-second distraction to slam his cuffed hands upward, deflecting the muzzle as it discharged. The gunshot deafened in the confined space, the round embedding in the van's ceiling. The kid beside Marcus moved faster than expected, driving his shoulder into the second attacker's knees. They crashed to the pavement in a tangle of limbs. The third gunman swung his weapon toward the struggle. Marcus didn't think. He lunged, his cuffed hands looping around the man's throat from behind. The chokehold was textbook, just enough pressure to restrict blood flow, not air. The gunman collapsed silently. Semper Fi, huh? The corporal spat, scrambling backward. His mask had slipped, revealing the jagged scar Marcus had stitched up himself in Fallujah. Marcus advanced, the chain between his cuffs pulled taut. You know what they're making you do, Riggs? That's treason. A shadow crossed Riggs' face. The earpiece squawked again. Eliminate all witnesses. Tires screeched nearby. More vehicles approaching. The kid suddenly held up a smartphone, recording. Live streaming to 3 news outlets. He lied, voice shaking but determined. You want to be the face of murdering a decorated Marine? Riggs hesitated. That was all Marcus needed. He disarmed Riggs with a brutal wristlock, then shoved him toward the open doors. Run, and pray I don't find you first. The approaching engines grew louder. Marcus grabbed the kid's arm. We have maybe 90 seconds. They sprinted down an alley strewn with broken bottles and fast food wrappers. Marcus's dress shoes slipped on grease, but he kept moving, dragging the kid along. Name, Marcus demanded as they rounded a corner. Eli Carter. The kid clutched his ribs, but kept pace. I saw the trial. You got set up. Marcus didn't respond. He'd spotted what he needed, an ancient fire escape with half its rungs missing. Up. Now. They climbed as shouts erupted behind them. The rusted metal groaned under their weight. Marcus's cuffs scraped against the ladder, leaving flecks of blood on the peeling paint. Eli's breath came in ragged gasps as they reached the roof. They'll have drones. Thermal. Marcus scanned the skyline. He knew this neighborhood, had walked these streets with his therapy group after the IED that ended his combat career. The VA hospital was 6 blocks northwest. Give me your phone. Eli handed it over reluctantly. Marcus smashed it against the rooftop gravel, then pried out the SIM card. Hey, you want to live? Marcus pocketed the card and kept moving across the tar paper roof. They're tracking everything. A metallic were sounded overhead. Marcus yanked Eli behind a ventilation unit as the drone passed, its camera lens glinting in the late afternoon sun. Eli's hands trembled. Why would government guys want you dead? Marcus examined his cuffs. Standard issue. Picking them would take. A gunshot rang out. Chips of brick exploded near Marcus's head. Move. They dove through a rooftop access door as bullets chewed through the metal behind them. The stairwell stank of urine and mildew, the steps littered with needles and broken glass. Marcus counted floors as they descended. 3 down. He kicked open a fire door into an abandoned office space. Cubicles stood like tombstones, their computers long gutted. Eli collapsed against a desk, clutching his side. A dark stain spread beneath his shirt. Marcus knelt beside him. How bad? Just grazed. Eli lied through clenched teeth. The wound was ugly, a through-and-through below the ribs. Marcus tore his dress shirt into strips, applying pressure. You should leave me, Eli gasped. Marcus tightened the makeshift bandage. Not how this works. Footsteps echoed in the stairwell. Multiple pairs. Professional spacing. Marcus dragged Eli behind a filing cabinet just as the door burst open. Sergeant Holloway, a smooth voice called. Let's not make this messy. Marcus knew that voice. Undersecretary Carson, the man who'd personally pinned medals to his chest at last year's Pentagon ceremony. Eli's blood seeped through the fabric. Marcus calculated their odds. 1 wounded civilian. No weapons. And Carson never went anywhere without at least 4 shadowy figures in suits. The undersecretary's polished Oxfords appeared between the cubicles. Come now, Marcus. You of all people understand operational security. Marcus's fingers found a broken keyboard under the desk. Useless. Then, a steel letter opener. Funny, Marcus said, loud enough to draw them closer. I remember security meaning protecting Americans, not framing them. Carson sighed. The program required sacrifices. You were convenient. Eli's breath hitched. Marcus pressed the letter opener into his hand. The first bodyguard rounded the corner. Marcus moved. His cuffed hand swung like a battering ram, crushing the man's windpipe. The second guard fired wild. The bullet shattered a monitor beside Eli's head. Marcus drove his shoulder into the shooter's stomach, sending them both crashing through a cubicle wall. The letter opener flashed as Eli lunged, burying itself in a third guard's thigh. Carson backpedaled, his comm shattered. You're making a mistake. Marcus snatched the fallen guard's pistol, racking the slide with his teeth. The metallic taste of gun oil filled his mouth. Only one here who made a mistake, he said, aiming squarely between Carson's eyes, was thinking I'd go quietly. Sirens wailed in the distance. Too many. Too fast. Eli tugged Marcus's sleeve. We can't fight the whole. Glass shattered. A flashbang rolled across the floor. Marcus barely had time to tackle Eli behind cover before the world dissolved into white noise and blinding light. When his vision cleared, Carson was gone, and the real hunt was just beginning. The ringing in Marcus's ears hadn't fully subsided when the first bootsteps crashed through the far exit. He blinked away tears from the flashbang's residual smoke, his military-trained eyes struggling to focus in the dim office light. Eli groaned beside him, clutching his bleeding side with one hand and the letter opener with the other. Stay down, Marcus mouthed, pressing the stolen pistol into Eli's shaking hands. The kid's eyes widened at the weapon's weight. For new figures entered through the shattered windows. Not Carson's suited goons this time. These moved with military precision, their black tactical gear devoid of insignia, but screaming special ops. Night vision goggles were flipped up on their helmets, their rifles sweeping the room in practiced arcs. Marcus's pulse pounded in his neck. He recognized the formation, a Marine Force recon kill team. His own brothers in arms, here to erase him. The lead operator's boot crunched glass inches from Marcus's hiding spot. He held his breath. One twitch, one cough from Eli, and they'd both be Swiss cheese. Then, a miracle. The operator's radio crackled. All units, converge on east stairwell. Possible sighting. The team pivoted as one and moved out, leaving Marcus and Eli in stunned silence. Eli exhaled shakily. Why'd that? Marcus clamped a hand over his mouth. The retreat was too easy. He'd done enough Black Ops to know the play. Fake withdrawal, wait for targets to break cover. Sure enough, 30 seconds later, one shadow detached itself from the doorway and crept back in. Lone Wolf, going rogue for the glory kill. Marcus's fingers found a jagged piece of the shattered cubicle wall. As the operator passed their hiding spot, he struck, driving the shard up under the man's ballistic vest where the armor gaped. The operator collapsed with a wet gurgle. Marcus stripped the body with clinical efficiency, comms earpiece, sidearm, combat knife. The night vision goggles he shoved at Eli. Put these on. Don't speak unless I tell you. The earpiece buzzed with tense chatter. Lost contact with Delta 7. Suspect heading for roof. Civilian still with him. Marcus's fingers froze on the dead operator's belt. Civilian. They were calling out Eli specifically. That changed everything. A new voice crackled through, one that turned Marcus's blood to ice. Priority override. Burn them both. No more mistakes. Secretary of Defense Harlan Wright, the man who'd personally handed Marcus his Medal of Honor. Eli must have seen the recognition in Marcus's face. Who was? Move. Marcus hauled him up, shoving the knife into his belt. They just upgraded us from detain to destroy. They slipped into the hallway, the NVGs turning everything an eerie green. Marcus led them downward, not to street level where snipers would be waiting, but to the basement. Every step sent fresh pain radiating from his bruised ribs, but he pushed through it. The stairwell reeked of mold and something more acrid. Marcus's combat-honed senses screamed danger before his conscious mind registered why. The scent was C4. They were mining the exits. Back! Back! He yanked Eli up the stairs just as the first charge detonated. The concussion wave hurled them against the wall, dust and debris raining down. Marcus's ears popped painfully. Eli coughed blood. They're trying to bury us alive. Marcus didn't answer. His focus was on the emergency floor plans barely visible under settling dust. There, a service tunnel marked HVAC access. Another explosion rocked the building. The ceiling groaned ominously. Can you run? Marcus demanded. Eli wiped his mouth. Do I have a choice? They stumbled through collapsing hallways, Marcus counting paces until they reached the maintenance door. It was locked, but the dead operator's keycard got them through. The tunnel beyond was claustrophobic, barely 3 feet wide, packed with groaning pipes. Marcus oriented himself by the faint vibration of the building's generators. This would lead to the adjacent parking structure, if they were lucky. Eli suddenly grabbed his arm. They're coming. Marcus heard it too, the squeak of tactical boots on metal. Close. Too close. He pushed Eli behind a massive boiler just as a flashlight beam swept past. 2 operators moved cautiously, their weapons ready. Thermal's useless in this heat. One muttered. Marcus palmed the combat knife. He could take them quietly, but not without risking Eli. Then he spotted the steam valve. Old, manual, rusted but still functional. A glance at Eli. A nod of understanding. Marcus wrenched the valve open with a metallic scream. Superheated steam erupted through the tunnel like a dragon's breath. The operators shouted, blinded and scalded. Go! Marcus shoved Eli past the flailing men. They ran hunched over, the steam burning their lungs. The tunnel curved upward, ending at another locked door. Marcus didn't bother with stealth this time. 3 bullets shattered the lock. They burst out into the parking garage's sublevel and nearly collided with a waiting SUV. The driver's door flew open. A woman Marcus hadn't seen in 5 years stood there, her FBI windbreaker stark against the concrete. Get in, Sergeant, Agent Daniela Reyes snapped. Unless you prefer being a stain on Wright's carpet. Marcus hesitated. Reyes had been his liaison during the Fallujah investigation. She'd also disappeared right before his trial. Eli made the choice for him, collapsing into the back seat. Marcus followed, weapon trained on Reyes. Drive. Then talk. The SUV peeled out just as more explosions rocked the building behind them. Reyes navigated the ramps with reckless speed. You're messing with things way above your pay grade, Holloway, she said, tossing a folder into his lap. Operation Morningstar. Ring any bells? Marcus flipped it open. Satellite photos of a desert compound. Lab reports with redacted names. And a personnel list with one shocking commonality. Every member of his old squad was on it. All now deceased except him. Eli leaned over, gasping. That's the place from my nightmares. Marcus stiffened. Explain. But Reyes interrupted, her eyes locked on the rear view. Save the reunion. We've got company. Black SUVs converged from 3 directions. Marcus counted at least 8 armed men visible through the tinted windows. Reyes yanked the wheel hard, sending them fishtailing toward an on-ramp. Time to choose, Sergeant. You want to know why your government betrayed you? Or you want to live long enough to make them pay? The lead SUV rammed them from behind. Marcus braced against the seat as they careened onto the highway, their pursuers closing fast. He met Reyes' gaze in the mirror. Both. The SUV's trunk popped open remotely, revealing a grim arsenal. Marcus's lips peeled back in something too feral to be called a smile. Let them come. The hunter was about to become the hunted. The SUV's rear window exploded inward as Marcus yanked an M4 from the trunk. Glass shards rained across the back seat as he returned fire through the gaping hole, his 3-round bursts precise despite the vehicle's violent swerving. One of the pursuing SUVs veered sharply, its front tire shredded by Marcus's shots. Eli, pressure on that wound. Marcus barked, ejecting the spent magazine. The kid was ghost pale, his hands trembling as he pressed a wadded-up FBI windbreaker against his side. Blood seeped through the dark fabric at an alarming rate. Reyes jerked the wheel hard right, sending them skidding onto an exit ramp. They've got air support inbound. We need to lose them before. A thunderous impact cut her off as another SUV T-boned them. Metal shrieked as their vehicle spun a full 360 degrees before Marcus's door slammed into a guardrail. The smell of burning rubber and spilled gasoline filled the cabin. Through his ringing ears, Marcus heard the distinctive whine of helicopter blades approaching. He kicked his door open, dragging Eli out just as the first spotlight beam sliced through the smoky air. Reyes emerged from the driver's side, her forehead bleeding. Ditch the car. They're painting us with lasers. Marcus didn't need to look up to know what that meant. Designated marksman in the helicopter. He hauled Eli toward a drainage culvert as the first suppressed shots kicked up concrete around their feet. Reyes provided covering fire with a compact submachine gun pulled from her ankle holster. The culvert smelled of mildew and stagnant water. Eli collapsed against the curved concrete wall, his breathing ragged. Can't keep. Marcus ripped open Eli's shirt to assess the damage. The bullet wound was ugly, a through-and-through just below the ribs, but the exit wound was larger than the entry. Something had tumbled inside that round before impact. Reyes. Marcus snapped. He's got a fragmenting wound. I know what we need. She crouched beside them, pulling a field dressing from her belt. But first we need to not die in this ditch. Above them, the helicopter's spotlights swept back and forth. Boots crunched gravel on the road above, at least 6 sets by Marcus's count. They were being flanked. Eli's fingers suddenly dug into Marcus's arm. The compound, in the photos. He gasped as Reyes packed the wound. I recognized the door handles. Marcus and Reyes exchanged a glance. The kid was delirious from blood loss. Except, the handles were hexagonal. Eli continued through clenched teeth, with serial numbers stamped on them. I saw them every night in my dreams. A chill ran down Marcus's spine. He remembered those details too, classified details no civilian could know. Details from a black site he'd helped secure during his last tour. Reyes's eyes narrowed. How old are you, kid? 19 last month, Eli groaned. Marcus did the math. Operation Morningstar's timeline. The missing test subjects. The way Eli fought, too practiced for a random street kid. Pieces clicked together with terrifying clarity. The shouting above grew closer. A radio crackled. Thermal shows 3 hostiles in the culvert, preparing to flush. Reyes cursed, checking her magazine. 4 rounds left. She looked at Marcus meaningfully. You're the priority. They want you silent. Marcus understood. Whatever Eli knew made him a target too. And Reyes. Marcus still didn't trust her sudden reappearance. A metallic clink rolled down the culvert slope. Marcus reacted instantly, yanking both Eli and Reyes deeper into the tunnel just as the flashbang detonated. Even shielded, the concussive wave rattled his teeth. Through the ringing, Marcus heard the distinct sound of boots splashing through water. The assault team was entering the culvert from both ends, standard pincer maneuver. They were trapped. Reyes pressed something into Marcus's hand, a slim data drive. Morningstar's truth. Get it to New York Times reporter Jessica Moreau. She's expecting it. Marcus pocketed the drive automatically. You have a plan? Reyes's smile was grim. I'm the distraction. Before Marcus could stop her, she surged forward into the tunnel's darkness, firing her last rounds. Chaos erupted. Muzzle flashes lit up the culvert like strobe lights. Marcus used the confusion to drag Eli in the opposite direction, toward a maintenance hatch barely visible in the gloom. Eli resisted weakly. We can't. Leave her. Marcus didn't answer. He'd seen enough battles to know sacrifice when he saw it. The hatch opened with a rusty screech, revealing a ladder descending into pitch blackness. Down. Now. They climbed down just as a final volley of gunfire echoed above. Then silence. Marcus forced himself not to look back. The ladder descended at least 50 feet before ending in a narrow service tunnel. The air here was thick with the hum of underground utilities. Marcus oriented himself by the vibration patterns. They were moving parallel to the city's subway lines. Eli collapsed at the base of the ladder. She's dead because of me. Marcus checked the kid's pulse, Freddy but present. She's dead because of them. Remember that. A noise from above made Marcus freeze. Someone was descending the ladder. Too light to be tactical gear, Reyes? Or worse, one of Wright's cleanup crew? Marcus pressed against the tunnel wall, his stolen knife ready. The figure dropped the last few feet, landing in a crouch. Reyes. Blood soaked her left sleeve, but she was alive. Took you long enough, she gasped. They bought the diversion. For now. Marcus didn't ask how she'd survived. He'd seen her work before. Instead, he pointed down the tunnel. Where does this lead? Old postal service tunnels. They connect too. Eli suddenly convulsed, his back arching off the concrete. Foam bubbled at his lips as his eyes rolled back. Marcus barely caught him before his head hit the ground. What the hell? Neurotoxin, Reyes said grimly, rolling up Eli's sleeve to reveal a small bruise with a pinprick center. They tagged him earlier. Probably in the office building. Marcus's stomach dropped. He'd seen this before. Experimental compounds designed to erase memories. Or witnesses. How long? Reyes checked Eli's pupils. An hour maybe. Then his nervous system starts dissolving. She met Marcus's gaze. There's one antidote stockpile left. Wright's private lab beneath the Watergate complex. Marcus knew the place. A high-security facility rumored to hold the government's darkest secrets. Impossible to breach. Except, he looked at Reyes. You wouldn't suggest it if you didn't have a plan. Her smile was all teeth. I've got a badge that still scans. And you've got a face they're not expecting to walk through the front door. Eli spasmed again, a whimper escaping his lips. Marcus made his decision. Lead the way. As they moved through the tunnels, Marcus noticed Reyes favoring her right side. A dark stain spread beneath her jacket that had nothing to do with Eli's blood. She'd been hit worse than she let on. The tunnel branched ahead. Reyes hesitated, then took the left passage. The walls here were marked with faded postal service markings and something newer, small hexagonal symbols spray-painted at intervals. Marcus's combat instincts screamed warning. Those symbols matched the door handles from the photos. The ones Eli recognized from his dreams. Reyes wasn't leading them to safety. She was leading them straight into the lion's den. And Marcus was going to let her, because whatever waited in that lab held answers. About Morningstar. About why they'd framed him. About what they'd done to Eli. The tunnel sloped downward, the air growing colder with each step. Somewhere ahead, a generator thrummed. Marcus adjusted his grip on the knife. The hunter had just become the hunted again. The tunnel's concrete walls gave way to older brickwork, the mortar crumbling between stones laid over a century ago. The hexagonal symbols grew more frequent, each one positioned exactly 7 paces apart, too precise for graffiti. Marcus ran his fingers over the latest marking, feeling the slight indentation where someone had carved the shape before painting it. Military survey markers, he muttered. Reyes glanced back, her face drawn tight with pain. What? These symbols. They're used to mark underground bunker entrances. Marcus's jaw tightened. You knew this led to Morningstar facilities. Eli groaned between them, his feverish skin glistening in the dim glow of emergency lighting that had begun to appear along the tunnel's ceiling. The lights weren't municipal. Thick cables ran between them, recently installed. Reyes didn't deny it. Only place with the antidote. The tunnel ended abruptly at a steel door that looked wildly out of place against the ancient brick. A keypad glowed faintly beside a retinal scanner. Reyes leaned into the scanner, her breathing shallow. Marcus noticed the way her right hand trembled as she input the code. The wound beneath her jacket was worse than she'd admitted. The door hissed open, revealing a sterile white corridor that smelled of antiseptic and something sharper, ozone, like after a lightning strike. Marcus hesitated. Every instinct screamed trap, but Eli's worsening convulsions left no choice. He adjusted his grip on the kid's arm and stepped through. The door sealed behind them with a sound like a bank vault closing. The corridor branched in 3 directions. Reyes turned left without hesitation, passing doors with small reinforced windows. Through one, Marcus glimpsed rows of hospital beds, all occupied by motionless figures. Test subjects, Reyes said quietly. Phase 3 trials. Marcus's stomach turned. He recognized the tattoos on one patient's forearm, 101st Airborne. A soldier. Eli suddenly stiffened, his bloodshot eyes flying open. No, not again. His voice was raw with terror. Reyes shushed him, guiding them toward a heavy door marked pharmacology. Her keycard got them through the first lock, but a second required a 6-digit code. Marcus watched her input the numbers. 120776, a date. His birthday. The lock clicked open. Inside, the lab was all stainless steel and blinking monitors. Reyes moved straight to a refrigerated cabinet, her hands steady as she prepared a syringe filled with neon blue liquid. This will stabilize him, she said, pressing the injector against Eli's neck. The hiss of the delivery mechanism seemed too loud in the quiet room. Almost immediately, Eli's breathing evened out. His eyelids fluttered shut as the seizure activity ceased. Marcus kept his knife ready. Now talk. What the hell is Morningstar? Reyes leaned against the lab table, her face ashen. You really don't remember, do you? She tapped one of the monitors, bringing up a security feed showing the corridor outside. They scrubbed you deeper than most. The screen flickered to a different view, a desert compound. Marcus recognized it from the photos in Reyes's folder. But this footage showed something new. Himself in combat gear, overseeing the transfer of prisoners. Not enemy combatants. Children. Marcus's vision tunneled. This is doctored. Reyes shook her head. You were following orders, just like me. Just like everyone involved. She pulled up another file. A memo bearing Secretary Wright's signature and Marcus's service number. Operation Morningstar was always about 2 things: developing cognitive enhancers for soldiers, and finding out what happens when you give them to subjects without military conditioning. Eli stirred on the exam table. The dreams, the injections. His voice was clearer now, the antidote working. Marcus's knife hand trembled. You're saying we experimented on kids. Not just kids. Reyes tapped another key. The screen changed to show a DNA helix with markers highlighted. 2nd-generation subjects. Children of the original test group. The implication hit Marcus like a rifle, but to the gut. His eyes snapped to Eli. Reyes nodded. Your son, Marcus. They took him right after birth. Vanessa never knew what really happened in that hospital. The walls seemed to close in. Marcus remembered the phone call, his deployment cut short because Vanessa had gone into early labor. By the time he'd gotten home, she'd been catatonic, the baby stillborn. A shrill alarm cut through the lab. The security monitor flashed red, armed responders converging on their position. Reyes moved quickly, inputting commands that locked down the lab. We have maybe 3 minutes. She shoved a data drive into Marcus's hand. Everything's here. Locations. Names. The senator backing it all. Marcus stared at the drive, then at Eli, his son, now 19 and stranger to him. The boy's eyes held the same steel-gray hue as his own. The first bullets impacted the lab's reinforced door. Reyes grabbed a pistol from under the console. There's an emergency shaft behind that panel. She nodded to a vent cover. Leads to the Potomac overflow tunnels. Marcus hesitated. You're not coming. She smiled sadly. Someone needs to hold them off while you get Eli out. The door shuddered under another impact. The locking mechanism groaned. Eli grabbed Reyes's arm. You knew. All these years, you knew what they did to me. Reyes met his gaze without flinching. And I'll burn for it. But first, you live. Marcus hauled Eli toward the vent, prying the cover off with his knife. The crawl space beyond was tight, barely wide enough for a man's shoulders. The lab door burst open just as Marcus shoved Eli inside. He turned back for Reyes, But the gunfire had already started. She stood her ground, firing methodically as black-clad figures poured into the room. Their eyes met one last time. Marcus crawled. The shaft angled steeply downward, the sound of gunfire fading behind them. Eli moved ahead, his movements sure despite the lingering toxin. You knew this route, Marcus realized. Eli didn't look back. They made us memorize escape paths. Part of the testing. The shaft emptied into a wider tunnel where the stench of the river mixed with chemical runoff. Eli collapsed against the curved wall, his strength finally giving out. Marcus caught him. We need to keep moving. Eli shook his head. They'll have the exits covered. We need to go deeper. He pointed to a maintenance ladder descending into blackness. The old flood control system. It connects to. A splash echoed from further down the tunnel. Then another. Footsteps in water. Marcus pushed Eli behind him, raising the knife. The footsteps grew closer, accompanied by the distinctive click of a weapon's safety being disengaged. A figure emerged from the gloom, not tactical gear, but a rumpled suit. The man's face was haggard, his eyes haunted. Senator Coulson, the man who'd pinned medals on Marcus's chest. The same man smirking in the courtroom. He raised empty hands. I can explain everything. Marcus's grip on the knife tightened. Start talking. Coulson's gaze flicked to Eli. You don't understand what's at stake. Morningstar wasn't just experiments. It was preparation. For what? The senator's next words would change everything. First contact. The visitors are coming, Sergeant. And we're nowhere near ready. The tunnel seemed to spin around Marcus. All the pieces, the cognitive enhancers, the secret testing, the desperate cover-up, suddenly realigned into a terrifying new picture. Eli made a choked sound. The lights in my dreams, the ones that weren't stars. Coulson nodded grimly. Not dreams. Memories. They've been coming for you since birth. A new sound echoed through the tunnels. Not gunfire, not footsteps. Something mechanical and alien, like 1,000 tuning forks vibrating in unison. It came from below, and it was getting closer. The alien resonance vibrated through the tunnel walls, sending rivulets of stagnant water trickling down the curved concrete. Marcus's combat-honed instincts flared. That sound didn't belong to any machinery he'd ever encountered. It raised the hair on his arms and set his teeth on edge like the moments before a lightning strike. Eli clutched his temples. They're here, he gasped. The collectors. Senator Coulson backed against the wall, his polished loafers splashing in the ankle-deep water. We need to move. Now. Marcus didn't budge, his knife still trained on Coulson's throat. Explain. Fast. The vibration intensified. A pipe burst somewhere overhead, spraying rust-colored water across the tunnel. 20 years ago, Coulson said, words tumbling out in a rush. We recovered a craft in the Nevada desert. Not Russian, not human. Inside we found instructions. A test, to see if our species was worth preserving. Eli moaned, blood trickling from his nose. The injections, the lights. The visitors seated certain children with markers. Coulson continued. Your son was one. We thought we could reverse engineer the technology. The tunnel lights exploded in a shower of sparks. In the sudden darkness, the mechanical hum swelled to a deafening crescendo. Marcus grabbed Eli as the ground trembled violently. Then, impossibly, the standing water began glowing. A pulsating blue radiance spread through the tunnel like liquid electricity, illuminating the terror on Coulson's face. They're drilling up from the lower levels, the senator whispered. Marcus spotted movement in the flooded tunnel ahead, shapes displacing water as they approached. Not human, not animal. Something moving with terrible purpose through the submerged passageway. He yanked Eli toward the maintenance ladder. Climb. The metal rungs shook under their combined weight as they ascended into a narrow service shaft. Below, the glowing water churned violently. Coulson scrambled after them, his expensive shoes slipping on the wet rungs. Faster, Marcus urged, shoving Eli upward. The senator wasn't so lucky. A tendril of that unnatural blue light lashed out from the rising water, wrapping around Coulson's ankle. He screamed, a sound that cut off abruptly as he was yanked downward with bone-breaking force. The last Marcus saw was the man's outstretched hand vanishing beneath the luminous surface. Eli froze above him, his breathing ragged. They take you alive. The harvesting, it's worse. Move, Marcus roared. They burst through a hatch into an electrical substation, the sudden fluorescent lights blinding after the tunnel's darkness. Marcus slammed the hatch shut behind them and jammed his knife through the locking mechanism. The metal immediately began warping from whatever pounded against it below. Eli collapsed against a transformer, his pupils dilated. They imprint on your frequency. Once they have your pattern, they never stop hunting. Marcus scanned the substation. Industrial circuit breakers. Steel support beams. No visible exits except the hatch they'd come through, now denting inward with each impact from below. Then he spotted it, a fiber optic conduit running along the ceiling, labeled DC Central Comm. A maintenance pathway. Can you walk? Marcus demanded. Eli pushed himself upright, wiping blood from his nose. Run, if I have to. Marcus smashed the conduit cover with a wrench from the tool wall. The narrow tunnel beyond smelled of ozone and plastic. They crawled through the cramped space just as the substation hatch blew inward with a metallic shriek. The conduit shook as something massive entered the substation below them. Marcus didn't look back. He focused on the faint light ahead, another access panel. They emerged in a server room, the sudden chill of air conditioning raising goosebumps on Marcus's soaked skin. Rows of blinking supercomputers lined the walls, their cooling fans masking their movements. Eli staggered to a terminal, his fingers flying across the keyboard. This is a DoD node. I can. The screen flickered violently before stabilizing. Security camera feeds popped up, showing black-suited teams sweeping the tunnels. But something else moved in the shadows behind them. Glimpses of that same eerie blue light. Marcus leaned over Eli's shoulder. What are you doing? Downloading Morningstar files to the data drive Reyes gave you. Eli's hands trembled but didn't stop typing. There's more here than human experiments. Schematics. Energy readings. They've been tracking the visitors for decades. The server room door hissed open. Marcus spun, wrench raised, only to lower it when he recognized the woman standing there. Jessica Moreau, the reporter Reyes had named. Her press badge hung askew, her blazer streaked with soot. She took in the scene with sharp, assessing eyes. You're either very lucky or very screwed, she said, tossing Marcus a sidearm. The whole facility's locking down. We have maybe 6 minutes before they purge this sector. Eli ejected the data drive. Got it. Everything right, tried to bury. Moreau nodded toward a ventilation shaft. This way, and don't touch the blue lights. They crawled through the ductwork, the metal vibrating beneath them. Marcus could hear shouts echoing through the building, some human, some not. The air smelled of burning insulation and something acrid he couldn't name. Moreau paused at an intersection, checking her smartwatch. They've triggered the sterilization protocol. Nerve gas in 3 minutes. Eli coughed violently, fresh blood speckling his lips. The antidote was failing. Marcus could see the kid's strength fading with every movement. Here, Moreau pried open a vent cover. Leads to the parking garage. My car's on level B2. Marcus helped Eli through first. As Moreau moved to follow, the ductwork suddenly glowed blue beneath them. The metal warped upward as if something massive was pushing from below. Go! Moreau shoved Marcus toward the opening just as the duct split open. Luminous tendrils lashed out, wrapping around her ankles. Marcus grabbed her wrists. The pull was incredible, like trying to hold back a tidal wave. Moreau's fingers slipped through his grasp. Take this. She threw her smartwatch at him an instant before disappearing into the glowing breach. The last thing Marcus saw was her determined expression before the duct sealed shut with a metallic snap. The smartwatch displayed a countdown. 1:47, 01:46, 01:45. Marcus dropped into the parking garage, catching Eli as he collapsed. The kid was burning up, his pulse thready. The watch read 1:30 now. A black sedan screeched around the corner. Moreau's car, still running. Marcus half-carried, half-dragged Eli toward it as the garage lights began flickering erratically. Behind them, concrete exploded upward in a shower of rebar and dust. The mechanical hum became a shriek as something massive breached the parking structure. Marcus didn't look back. He dumped Eli into the passenger seat and slammed the accelerator just as the garage's support columns began collapsing in their wake. The sedan fishtailed onto the exit ramp, bursting into the night air seconds before the entire structure imploded behind them. The shockwave rattled the car's frame as Marcus navigated through debris raining from the sky. Eli stirred weakly. The drive. Marcus patted his pocket. Safe. He risked a glance in the rearview mirror. The ruins of the facility glowed an unnatural blue against the night sky. And moving through the smoke, shapes. Tall. Angular. Wrong. The smartwatch beeped. A new message popped up, Miro's final upload. Coordinates. And 2 words. Tell everyone. Marcus adjusted his grip on the wheel and pointed the car east. Toward DC, toward the only people left who might believe them. The fight wasn't over. It had just become something much bigger. The sedan's tires screamed as Marcus took a corner too fast, the G-force slamming Eli against the passenger door. The kid groaned, his feverish skin leaving a damp imprint on the window glass. Behind them, the glow from the collapsed facility painted the low clouds an eerie indigo. Stay with me, soldier. Marcus growled, reaching across to shake Eli's shoulder. The boy's eyelids fluttered, his pupils uneven, his breathing shallow. The antidote was failing. A news bulletin crackled from the car radio. Explosion at a Department of Defense research site in Arlington. Authorities are calling it a gas main rupture. Marcus smashed the radio knob with his fist. Gas main. Right. He'd seen the footage from Pennsylvania in '97. The government's first instinct was always to lie. Eli's fingers scrabbled at the dashboard. They're coming, he slurred. Can't you hear them? Marcus rolled down the windows. The humid night air carried no unusual sounds, just distant sirens and the normal hum of DC traffic. Then he felt it. A subsonic vibration through the steering wheel, so low it registered in his bones rather than his ears. The same frequency from the tunnels. His military-issue smartwatch, Miro's watch, suddenly displayed a pulsing red dot on its GPS map. Due west. Moving fast. Too fast for any conventional vehicle. Marcus stomped the accelerator, weaving through late-night traffic on Route 50. The sedan's engine whined in protest. He needed somewhere secure. Somewhere with weapons. Somewhere. The bunker, Eli mumbled. Under the Smithsonian. Marcus shot him a look. What bunker? Eli tapped his temple weakly. They put maps in our heads. Emergency protocols. His hand dropped limply. Password is your service number backwards. A horn blared as Marcus swerved across 3 lanes. The Smithsonian made twisted sense, a public landmark no one would suspect, with underground storage vaults dating back to World War II. The vibration intensified. Rearview mirrors showed nothing unusual, just headlights. Then Marcus noticed the pattern. Every third car had the same make, same model, same distance apart. A surveillance net. He took the exit for the National Mall at 80 miles per hour, tires smoking as they hit the off-ramp curve. The sudden view stopped Marcus's breath. The Washington Monument glowed an unnatural blue at its peak, like a beacon. Eli followed his gaze. Signal tower. They built it first. The whole city's a trap. Marcus's grip tightened on the wheel. He'd marched in parades down this mall. Taken Vanessa to the Lincoln Memorial on their first date. Every brick and monument suddenly looked alien, sinister. A black SUV materialized behind them. No license plates, its headlights oddly muted. Then another. And another. Hold on. Marcus yanked the wheel hard left, mounting the mall's grassy expanse. The sedan bucked over uneven turf, its undercarriage scraping as they cut between museums. The SUVs followed effortlessly. Eli fumbled with the glove compartment. There's a... Gunfire erupted. The rear windshield exploded inward. Marcus felt the round graze his cheek as he ducked. Gun. Eli finished, producing a compact Glock 19. Marcus took it without comment. 7 rounds left in the mag. Against 3 SUVs full of armed operatives. The sedan's tires hit pavement again as they skidded around the Museum of Natural History. Marcus's headlights illuminated a delivery entrance, and more importantly, the armed security guard standing there. Federal agent. Marcus bellowed out the window as they screeched to a stop. Active shooter situation. The guard hesitated, hand on his sidearm. The approaching SUVs decided for him. Their windows slid down to reveal mounted automatic weapons. Marcus dragged Eli from the car as the first barrage tore through the sedan's hood. The guard dove for cover, screaming into his radio. Marcus didn't wait for backup. He shot out the door's electronic lock and kicked it open. The service corridor beyond smelled of disinfectant and old marble. Eli stumbled along beside him, his breathing increasingly labored. Behind them, shouts and running footsteps echoed. Where now? Marcus demanded. Eli pointed to an unmarked door labeled electrical. Down. 2 levels. The stairwell was narrow, the steps worn smooth by decades of maintenance staff. Marcus counted flights as they descended, past basement level, past sub-basement, to a steel door with no visible handle. Service number, Eli reminded him, leaning heavily against the wall. Blood dripped from his nose onto the concrete floor. Backwards. Marcus input the digits. The door hissed open, revealing a vault-like space that defied logic. Ultramodern tech crammed into a historic building's bones. Banks of servers lined one wall, their cooling fans the only sound. The opposite wall displayed a massive digital map of DC, pulsing with blue dots at every major landmark. But it was the center console that froze Marcus's blood. A sleek metallic pod, just large enough for a human. And inside, Jesus Christ. Eli sagged against the pod's transparent lid. They grew us in these. Faster. Smarter. Built to receive their signals. Marcus wiped condensation from the glass. The figure inside was Eli, but not. Younger. Paler. Eyes moving rapidly beneath closed lids. Clones. Vessels. Eli coughed violently. For when our bodies wear out. Footsteps pounded above them. Multiple pairs. Marcus scanned the room for weapons. Nothing but tech. Then his eyes landed on the server racks. Specifically, the red emergency handle labeled magnetic quench. Eli followed his gaze. That'll fry every circuit in a half-mile radius. Including us. The footsteps reached the stairwell door. Marcus made his decision. How do we wake him up? He pointed at the pod. Eli input a code on the pod's console. He's not ready. The transfer will. The door burst open. 3 black-clad operatives stormed in, weapons raised. Marcus recognized the lead man. Same scarred face from the culvert. Riggs. Step away from the pod, Sergeant. Riggs's rifle never wavered. This doesn't have to end messy. Marcus edged toward the quench handle. You saw what they are. What they're doing. And you're still following orders. Riggs's jaw tightened. New world's coming. I aim to be on the winning side. Eli suddenly spasmed, collapsing against the pod. The glass fogged under his breath as he gasped. Now, Marcus. Do it now. Marcus yanked the quench handle. The effect was instantaneous. Every light in the bunker flared blindingly bright before exploding in a shower of sparks. The operatives screamed as their weapons overheated in their hands. The digital map died in a cascade of failing pixels. And the pod hissed open. The figure inside sat up slowly, blinking identical steel-gray eyes. Younger Eli looked from Marcus to his dying counterpart with eerie calm. Father, he said, in a voice that wasn't quite human. We have approximately 3 minutes and 42 seconds before the facility self-destructs. Riggs was first to recover, drawing a combat knife. Not happening. He lunged. Younger Eli moved faster than Marcus's eyes could track. One slender hand snapped Riggs's wrist with a dry crack. The other struck his throat with surgical precision. The operative dropped, gagging. The remaining 2 men backed toward the door. Younger Eli tilted his head. They'll alert the others. May I? Marcus nodded, stunned. What happened next would haunt him. The boy, the thing, moved with impossible grace. No wasted motion. No hesitation. 2 quick strikes, 2 collapsed forms. Neither would get up again. Eli, the original Eli, coughed weakly from the floor. Told you, he's not ready. Blood flecked his lips. The transfer's incomplete. Younger Eli knelt beside him. Sufficient for our purposes. He pressed a hand to his counterpart's chest. Rest now. The light left the original Eli's eyes with a soft exhalation. Marcus reached for him, but it was too late. A distant rumble shook the bunker. Dust sifted from the ceiling. Self-destruct sequence initiated, younger Eli said calmly. We should exit via the service tunnel. He retrieved the data drive from his predecessor's pocket. This contains enough evidence to collapse 17 government agencies and implicate 2 foreign powers. Marcus stared at the boy, the clone, the vessel, whatever he was. The eyes were Eli's. The voice was Eli's. But the soul. Another explosion, closer this time. Younger Eli took Marcus's hand. The touch was warm. Human. Father, he said gently. They're coming for us. All of us. The bunker trembled around them as Marcus made his choice. He squeezed the hand that wasn't his son's, not really, and ran for the tunnels. Above them, the first stars of dawn glittered cold and bright. Too bright. and moving. The fight wasn't over. It had only just begun. The morning air smelled of smoke and damp grass as Marcus emerged from the service tunnel, dragging in great heaving breaths. Beside him, the boy Eli, but not Eli, stood unnervingly still, his face tilted toward the pre-dawn sky. The first rays of sunlight glinted off something metallic in his pupils. Behind them, the Smithsonian bunker collapsed in a series of muffled thumps, the ground shuddering beneath their feet. Alarms wailed in the distance, but the National Mall remained eerily empty. No police, no emergency responders, as if the city itself had been cleared out. Marcus's hands trembled, not from exhaustion, but from the weight of what he'd just lost. The real Eli was gone. The boy beside him was something else. A copy, a vessel. And yet, "You're not him," Marcus said, voice rough. The boy blinked, those two bright eyes reflecting the glow of the dying facility behind them. "No, but I remember everything he did, everything he felt." He paused. "Including you." Marcus exhaled sharply. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was all he had. The data drive weighed heavy in his pocket. Miro's final upload. Coulson's confession. Reyes's sacrifice. Enough to bring down the men who'd orchestrated this. But not the ones who'd started it. Not the visitors. The boy's head snapped toward the horizon, his body tensing like a predator catching a scent. "They're coming." Marcus followed his gaze. The sky over DC shimmered, the stars twisting in unnatural patterns. Not stars at all. Ships. He tightened his grip on the Glock. Useless against what was coming, but it was all he had. "Where do we go?" The boy, his son, in some fractured way, turned to him. "Somewhere they won't expect." A faint, almost human smile touched his lips. "Home." Marcus hesitated. Home. The word felt foreign. He hadn't had one since Vanessa. Since before the lies. But the boy was already moving, confident, certain. And for the first time, Marcus let himself follow. The sun rose over the ruins of the bunker, casting long shadows across the empty mall. Somewhere in the distance, a newscaster's voice crackled from a dying radio, repeating the official line: "A gas leak, a tragic accident." But the truth was out there now. In Marcus's hands. In the boy's memories. In the sky itself. And the fight wasn't over. The end. If you enjoyed this gripping tale of betrayal, conspiracy, and redemption, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more intense, emotional stories like this one. Drop a comment below. What would you have done in Marcus's place? Let us know.